This podcast was recorded on Gadigal land. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay our respects to elders both past and present. Always was, always will be.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to episode 9 of My Mother's a Sex Therapist.
Hello, episode 9, and it's the last one of our first season.
Yes.
We're
wrapping it up at episode 9.
Well, yeah, we're going into the summer holiday season, so we probably won't do another one for a few weeks. So it seems appropriate to wind it up here.
Yep. We're winding it up with a big one.
Mm-hmm.
What comes before consent?
Yes.
But what comes before consent? Is the weekly segment of Erotic Moment.
Indeed.
What was your most erotic moment of the week, Mum?
Well, as our viewers will see, we're back in Sydney. We're no longer in Bali.
You can probably hear the cicadas as well.
Yes, we have the background of summer in Sydney, which is cicadas.
Yeah, they're kind of loud, but...
And it's a sweltering hot day here. So you might also see a little perspiration on our faces. So coming back from Bali, my erotic moment, and it happens every time I fly back into this beautiful city. I'm flying over Sydney and I see the waterways and the rivers and all the greenery and the coastline, and I just feel so much love. I just have such a sense of coming home, and this is my home. And I've lived around the world and I've traveled around the world, but for me, Sydney, especially when you're flying over, it's so beautiful. And I just get this welling up of joy. And that's kind of what we're talking about when we say erotic, the life force and the feeling.
Alignment with your truest self.
Yeah. And
delightful. You've made the right choice in living here.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. Very happy. Even though Bali was beautiful, love going to Bali. This time coming home, just amazing. So that's my erotic moment for the week.
Have you always felt that way about Sydney?
I have actually.
Cool.
Ever since we moved here when your big brother was a baby. What about you, my darling?
Well, mine was because in Bali, I noticed that I was very relaxed all the time.
Mm.
And I was like, why is this so different to my usual day-to-day vibes? And then I went back to work and I was like, whoa, if Bali is 0 out of 10 stress, then work is like 6 to 7 out of 10 stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was probably the most erotic moment where I was like just noticing and realizing and like trying to not act like trying to fix it yet, but I was just trying to like be present and find what was super stressful about it and then just like acknowledge it. Very difficult to de-stress super fast.
Of course.
Like that. So it was just kind of like, oh wow, okay, yes, my job is very stressful. So yeah, it was good to realize that and have the comparison of the contrast of like extreme relaxation versus my regular day-to-day life, because I think humans get really used to the amount of stress that they're living under.
Oh, absolutely. It's what you're familiar with.
Yeah, so it was kind of good to have a little wake-up call of thought. Now I'm trying to be less stressed.
Yeah. Well, noticing it and acknowledging it is the first step to being able to change it.
Yeah.
As you said, a lot of people don't even realize what the problem is. It's so familiar, they just think it's normal.
Yeah.
But when you start noticing it, there's this term, syntonic and distonic.
Okay.
Have you heard that?
No.
So syntonic is when a dysfunction feels aligned with who you are. It feels normal. It feels natural. Whether it's stress or worry, anxiety, all of these negative things. And distonic is when it doesn't feel aligned, right? You notice that it's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? So for you, your stress has gone from syntonic to distonic, right? Before it sort of felt normal. And now it feels, oh, actually I don't like that. That's not normal, right? And it's only when you get to that point that you can then really start taking action on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really big.
Yeah.
Yay, go you.
Big and erotic. That moment.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So hopefully next episode, first episode of season 2, we're going to have like 3 weeks of erotic moments.
Yeah.
To bank up on. We're going to have to like write them down.
Actually, someone was telling me the other day, a group of young people were saying that they were listening to this podcast as they were driving a long distance, and they were all sharing their erotic moments.
Aww.
Like they really took it on board as like a really cool thing to share with each other. Yeah. I was so pleased.
That's so cute.
I love getting the feedback. Send in your feedback. It's great. Wouldn't it be great like if everyone in the world was just sharing their erotic moments with everyone? And
yeah.
sharing the love and the joy and the insights.
And not being ashamed of the word erotic.
Yeah. Like we're kind of repurposing this word to be what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Full of life.
None of this shame. None of this sexy shame. Shame bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway. So today we're talking about consent.
Yes, we are.
Because the non-linear model, as you're all well acquainted with now.
Yes.
Kind of makes you realize that the consent model we were taught is not the best. Because what are you're consenting to routine, this step by step. Like, yep, I want to have sex with you, so then we'll kiss, and then we'll do probably some cunnilingus, and then we'll have some penetration.
Ah, you said that word. We don't say that P word on this podcast.
Don't, but I'm
yes, you're making a point, of course.
Yeah. And that's a lot to agree to.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not sure, but you know that you do want to connect. But you don't want you're agreeing to this like 3-step process.
Then the all or nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
It's also very overwhelming. And while it is better than not having that consent practice, there's a lot of room for improvement.
Indeed there is.
And there's a lot more room for safety and expressing yourself honestly.
And pleasure.
And
actual pleasure.
Yeah. And it's just really stressful. Having to be like, okay, so I'm here now. Will I be there in like 10 or so minutes when he's there now? Blah, blah, blah. Heteronormative, whatever. But
yeah, partner's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this applies to same-sex attracted people too.
Yeah.
This whole, do you want to have sex? Yes or no? Yeah, are you consenting to this whole process or not?
Yeah. Right now, are you ready to go all the way to the end?
Yeah. And even like there's a little bit of an illusion of consent too, particularly for committed couples, right? Because, one doesn't want to upset the other. So they're more likely to say yes so as not to upset the other, even though they don't necessarily want to.
Yeah. People are very concerned about their partners when it comes to this consent model rather than being concerned with themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like way too often, and I think this might be surprising for some people to hear, but in my experience, most people, apart from a few horribly entitled people who can be of any sex, are more concerned about what's going on for their partner than what's going on for themselves. Yeah. And it can seem a little bit like narcissistic or whatever to be focused on your own pleasure and not be thinking about your partner. Well, I'm like, you have to do both.
Yeah.
But very much you have to be coming from, well, where am I at now? What am I feeling in this moment? So that you can share that with your partner. And then they do the same. And from that you co-create.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're consenting to the co-creation rather than the act itself.
You're not consenting to what you think your partner wants.
Yeah.
Or you're not consenting to what you think you should be doing. Yeah. You're actually consenting to what is actually happening in the moment.
Yeah. Which is way better.
It is.
Way more fulfilling.
Yes.
Way more connecting. All those buzzwords that we drop all the time.
Yes. Pleasure and connection, pleasure and connection, pleasure and connection. They're your KPIs. That's what it's all about. So the only person who can tell you if it is pleasurable and connecting is yourself.
Yep. And that's that internal GPS.
The internal GPS.
Guides you, directs you.
Yep. Right. And paying attention to where your partner's at. Right. And that requires the big C word. Communication.
Not come.
But you're more likely to come if you do the communication.
Cunnilingus.
Oh, that's a good one too.
There's a lot of good C words.
Yes.
Also Claude.
Claude is a great C word. Thank you very much.
So what comes before consent?
Self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. How do you develop that?
Well, it is that inner GPS, right? It is about becoming more embodied, because so many Westerners are just like these heads that wander around and there's a body down below, and they're not paying a lot of attention to what's going on down below.
Mm-hmm.
And the information comes from down below. It's a bottom-up process.
Mm-hmm.
Your head on its own doesn't know what you're feeling.
What was that fact that you drop all the time?
Oh, yeah, I came across it once. Can't testify to this, but something like 80% of the information that our brains are processing is bottom-up.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're not paying attention to what's going on inside you, your brain is trying to operate on 20% of the information. Mm-hmm. Right? And in particular, when we're coming to things like sex, if your brain's trying to make decisions based on belief systems, right, and not on what you're actually feeling, then you're not necessarily going to make the right decision, right? And then your brain's going to be trying to override what your body's actually feeling, and that's when you get into like dissociation and checking out or just going along with.
Yeah, and it can be pretty intense to try and like break that belief system before the actual sexual creation.
Which is why we go on and on and on about the nonlinear model, right? Because for so many people, you know, consent is like, well, what are we consenting to? If you've only got that linear model, then you're going to be consenting to that or not.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to do that, if you don't know what the alternative is, well,
you do nothing.
You can't consent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like you can't consent to sex when you are consenting as well, though, because if you don't know what it is.
Well, exactly.
Like, what are you actually consenting to?
Yeah. And it's interesting when I'm working with clients in my clinic, one of the first questions I'll ask them generally, I mean, depends on the clients, but very often what I'll say is, why? Why do you have sex? What's it all about?
What is the purpose of this?
Yeah. And almost inevitably they go, oh, that's a good question. I've never thought about that before. And they often look at each other very puzzled, like, oh, what a good question. And I'm like, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You're coming here, you have a problem, and you haven't even thought about why you would be doing this thing you have a problem about.
Yeah, it's like trying to manage your finances and you're like, wait, what is tax?
Yes. Why money? Why? What's it all about?
Why do we need this again? Yeah.
Yeah.
But also that's probably because everyone is taught what sex is, and so they don't think they have to think about it any further, but they know that there's something missing.
Yes.
They don't really know how to fill in that gap.
Yeah. And we have this kind of concept that when we're talking about sex, we all know what we're talking about.
Yeah, we don't. None of us actually.
Yeah, I know. And I see these kind of debates and these discussions and articles and all sorts of things talking about sex. And I'm like, everyone reading this and the person writing it almost invariably has got an assumption about what sex is.
Yeah.
Which is generally pretty aligned to the linear approach.
Yeah.
And is just assuming that everyone else knows.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got a big job here, darling.
I know.
To dispel this.
I know.
So spread the word, lovers, listeners. Spread the word. We've got to get this information out there.
But circling back to the question.
Oh, yeah, but circling back to the question. Yes.
What is sex?
What is sex? So I put this to my couples and individuals.
I think this is a good episode to have over the holiday season because sex will be different to everyone in each couple. And so it's good a time to figure it out and talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because people are going to have more time.
Yeah, exactly.
And can probably use this time to sort of explore the whole nonlinear approach a bit better. Yeah. Anyway, let me finish what I was saying.
Yes, so what is sex?
I put it to the clients and I get them talking to each other. to explain what is sex.
Talking to each other, guys, weird. Could you imagine?
I know. And again, almost invariably, in fact, probably I reckon 99.9% of the time, they say it's about pleasure and connection. They're like, well, it feels good and it's connecting.
Yeah.
Right? And can I just stress, the men say it as much as the women, if not more. Like, it makes people feel close. And they all talk about, oh, but it makes me feel closer and we feel closer and we get on better and we don't sweat the small stuff and it's a lovely thing to do.
Yep.
And then they start sort of smiling at each other and their faces start glowing and they're like, oh, and I'm like, does that sound like you two are aligned? Like, does that sound like the purpose, the why is aligned? And they're like, well, yeah.
Mind blowing.
Yeah. So good.
But so that's like kind of the like reason why you do it.
Yes.
But it changes every time as well. That's kind of like the big umbrella.
That's the umbrella why. Yeah.
Each time it'll be different. And each goal, I don't really know if that's the right word, but objective will be pleasure and connection. But the way that you go about it will be different.
Yes, like the pathway to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many possibilities.
Yeah. And then what you're doing as you're engaging. Yes. So how do you know? How do you know what it is you want? Right.
Yeah.
And what I get my couples doing is, and singles as well, like I talk to people when they're dating and stuff. In fact, I had this great guy who I was working with a bit earlier this year. Actually, I think he's still going to come back. No, actually, he's not. He's done. That's right. Because really good-looking man in his, I don't know, early 30s, I think, mid-30s and stuff. He'd never had any success dating. In fact, was a virgin. Right? And you'd never have thought it because, good-looking, engaging, intelligent, very personable man and stuff. But I taught him this idea about consent, right? Which took away all the pressure because he thought, like so many men do, that he had to somehow get it right and just launch on in. And he'd start sort of freaking out and sort of pulling back and withdrawing, right? And I said to him, mate, if you start doing that with a woman who you're dating, because you come across as so, attractive and confident, inevitably she's going to interpret that as you're not interested.
Yeah, something wrong with her.
Yeah, she's not going to be thinking, oh, he's shy or he's confused or he doesn't know what he's doing, right? I said, so reach out to her. Check out where she's at, like what you're wanting, share of self. Even if it's something as simple as, yeah, like, wouldn't mind holding your hand. How do you feel about that? Yeah, or I'm feeling a kiss coming upon me. What do you reckon? So this applies to people before they get into relationships as well. But for people who are in relationships, it's very much about sharing of self, making a suggestion and seeing how the other feels about that.
Yeah.
So a couple of things not to do. Don't ask permission.
Yeah.
Can I hold your hand? Can we have a kiss? Can we have sex? Can we go to the bedroom? Can we? Can I? Right? Because that sets up a power disparity.
Yeah.
And actually you're handing over power to the other person. Right? And then they're stuck with a yes or no answer.
Yeah.
About something that's actually what you're wanting, not necessarily where they're at. Right? Or the other thing not to do is ask if the other person wants to. Do you want to have a kiss? Do you want to hug? Do you want to go to the bedroom? Do you want to get naked? Do you, right? Same kind of thing, but sort of even worse in a way. Because it's almost like you're putting this whole new concept on someone. You don't even know if they're there.
Yeah.
So then they're like, what? Where's that come from? So what you need to do, you are the one wanting to do this thing, right?
Yeah.
You're just going, oh, okay, this is what I'm feeling. Yeah? This is what I'm feeling. So share of self. Say, hey, I wouldn't mind a cuddle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking since, we're both in a good mood and the kids have gone to bed early, that maybe we could head off to the bedroom a bit earlier, right? What do you feel about that? And then you give your partner the opportunity to check in with themselves. That's a nice suggestion. And it might be yes.
Yeah.
Or it might be, that's kind of not where I'm at right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like, because before it's like, oh God, they want me right now.
Yes.
Jeez. Okay. Whereas now it's like, oh, that's what you want? Let me think about that. And it's like less shocking.
It's less shocking. And it creates a space which gives you safety to be able to check in with yourself and respond. And most importantly, it's erotic.
Mm-hmm.
In that space, there's an eroticism. There's a pause. There's what's going to happen next? Like, what are we creating here before anything's even happened?
Yeah. And because the goal is pleasure and connection, by starting it out with that point of connection.
Yeah.
Like ingrained in pleasure is like a very good way to start off rather than just like a big shock to the system.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll make you go,
yeah, right. And as soon as you like that, then the threat response is kicking in and your body's starting to go, oh, danger, danger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas when someone makes an offer, makes a suggestion, makes an invitation, it's like, oh, right. So when you're making it, because you're not sort of begging or imposing, like, oh, do you want to? Or can we? Yeah. Just like, hey, I've got this idea. I'm thinking I wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's pleasure in that. There's like, because you're probably saying it with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cheeky little look as well, probably.
Could be a cheeky look.
And it's also vulnerability,
Yes.
Which invites more vulnerability.
Oh, such an important point.
So wise.
You are so wise, my darling. The big V word. Right? Vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right?
Easiest way to connect.
It is. And sometimes people think vulnerability is like having really deep and meaningfuls and you've got to like bare your soul and stuff. But sometimes it's just like, hey, doll, I'm just going to have a shower. I was thinking I wouldn't mind if you joined me. Yeah? Because your vulnerability is sharing of self.
Yep.
Not doing the dance of trying to mind read each other, which is how too many people move into an intimate engagement.
It's just so stressful, just like all the guesswork and all of the like trying to read the future as well.
Yes.
Whereas this like actually allows you to be present with your person.
It does.
Which is very ideal.
Indeed.
And from that vulnerability is like where trust gets built and then it just gets easier and easier.
Darling, you're amazing at this.
I know. Really, it's a skill. Anyway.
Inherited.
So how would you suggest people practice this if this concept is new to them?
All right.
Say outside. It could be outside of the bedroom as well. It doesn't have to be sexy.
Absolutely. So let's look at it at two levels. One level is the knowing what you want.
Yeah.
And the second is communicating it. All right. Now, a lot of people say to me, oh, I don't know what I want. Right. Particularly females. I don't know what I want. Right. And also a lot of what males often do is they think, well, I've got an erection and that's all I want. Right? So most people aren't used to looking at the nuances of what they actually want, right? And when people say to me, I don't know what I want, or I just want this one thing, I say to them, look, you are making choices constantly throughout the day, right? And you're making those choices very often based on what you want. Like if you're deciding what you're going to wear in the morning, yeah, you're looking at your wardrobe, you're making a choice based on, do I feel like wearing this top or that top?
Yeah.
Notice that you're making those decisions. Whenever you're eating something, you are making a decision based on what you want, right? So just notice, I'm making a choice to eat this right now, right? You want to watch something on a screen, right? You're making a choice, right? Are you going to call someone? There's all these little choices that we're making through life. So when you start paying attention to the fact that you are making choices, then you start going, okay, I'm kind of understanding this process. And sometimes people do actually notice that their choices aren't actually based on what they're feeling, but on what they're thinking they should. This is what I should eat. This is what I should be wearing. This is what I should be, right? Which is interesting in itself, right? So start noticing how you're making choices and the process that you're going through. And particularly pleasurable choices.
Yeah.
Around, is this a pleasurable thing I'm choosing here? I have this option because, a lot of modern people don't actually really allow themselves pleasure, not even conscious pleasure. Sometimes people default to, I'm just going to scroll through my social media, but that's not actually pleasure. That's checking out.
Yeah. Well, Well, it stops the brain noise. Stops you from having to use your brain.
Yeah.
Which is understandable considering that everyone's forced to like use their brain all the time in capitalism. But it's an easy out that isn't very effective, the scrolling.
Yeah. And all it does is it's kind of numbing.
Yeah.
When in fact what we're wanting to do, if you've got a busy mind, is actually become more embodied. So certainly, meditating and breath work and things that like get you in your body, going for a walk, running, all those kind of sports and stuff will actually still the mind and let you get into your body, right? So pay more attention and give yourself the option to make choices consciously.
Yeah.
Yeah? So that's one thing, bit of homework that I often give my clients that you can take on board if you're like, I don't really know what I want, right? And also in terms of sex as well, if you don't have a solo sex practice, and notice I call it a practice, right? Then really get into pleasuring yourself. And for the females listening, I'm big on using your fingers. Like if you want to use toys, vibrators, I mean, that's fine. But you don't get the nuance that you do when you're using your fingers.
And it's like both the feeling and the receiving connection point, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it doesn't mimic what's happening when you're with your partner as well.
Yeah.
Not that it has to mimic what's happening with your partner. But
I just don't like vibrators because it makes me feel all electrical in a bad way.
Oh, they're too intense.
Yeah.
I just can't.
I mean, I can feel my whole like pelvis vibrate in a bad way.
Yeah, and I feel my whole body it's kind of getting tense.
Yeah.
And then even when you do have an orgasm, it freaking keeps going at the same pace, like you can't sort of build it up a little. Yeah, like all those lovely things that you can do. And you know what? I'm always going on about like how we're always taking agency away from women over their bodies.
Yeah.
And look, I think it's great that vibrators exist. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it's great that everything exists. But when you feel you don't have agency over your body, you can't use your fingers. And sometimes it's because of shame. Are we getting into a whole masturbation conversation here?
Okay. Step number 2.
Well, yeah, it's part of step number 2, isn't it? Yeah. So, if you're going, ooh, but that's touching myself, ooh, that's icky. Well, then you start touching. Right? But also if it's just like, I can't be asked, just whack on the vibrator. Look, there's a place for that.
Yeah, and like injured people use vibrators.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Or people who don't have good hand control. I mean, yeah, like I said, everything's wonderful.
But it's easy to connect with yourself when you're the one who can feel
and also when you're, like put oil over your body. I mean, I'm talking to females here, right? Like, I mean, the men can too. But, like really like connect to your breasts and, just the whole, like literally making love to yourself. And then that's going to help you sort of get more in touch and share with your partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the self-care routine. For my AFAB bitches.
You love that term, don't you?
I do.
That means assigned female as birth.
So step number 2, fuck yourself.
I said make love to yourself. Look, if that's what you want to do, like, yeah.
Lovingly.
There's nothing wrong with a good fuck. Yeah. As long as it's got the joy and the love and the good feeling in it. Really? Yeah. As long as it's pleasurable and connecting.
Yep.
Good fuck can be like that.
And like, do your skincare. You do, unless you're like planning on getting a little sweaty, then maybe you touch yourself first and then do your skincare after. But like, you know what I'm saying? We've got these like, all of the girlies / pussy people on the internet have like this like 45-step skincare routine. Just put masturbation in there as well. Incorporate it into the self-care routine.
Yeah. And if you've got a meditation practice, it can be really nice to have a bit of self-pleasuring before you meditate. Right? Or you can, we'll probably do another program on about how you actually raise the energy while you're meditating, which can give you an orgasmic experience.
2025.
Yeah.
Masturbation.
Meditation.
Meditation. We got so many episodes coming.
We do have a lot of it. Anyway, I was going to say something. Oh, yeah. And also for the penis owners. Yeah. Don't just kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to have a quick little wank. I mean, you can, right? But really kind of fit, what am I feeling here? What am I enjoying here?
Yeah.
And you too can sort of like, like, oh, okay, I'm in my body, like do an internal body scan. Like, what am I feeling in my body? And, you can actually touch your body, right?
And there's so many benefits to having a self-love practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was saying earlier, that self-care routine that we're all told is good. Like that just releases chemicals in your brain. Like obviously it'll make you look good as well, which will release more chemicals in your brain looking good. But like all of this self-careness is about feeling your best self, feeling good, feeling like centered in yourself.
Yes.
Put some masturbation in there as well.
Yes.
It's another very easy way.
Yeah.
And like just orgasms just really improve your quality of life. Well, not even just orgasms, but like pleasure.
Yeah. We're actually designed for pleasure. Like the human body responds really well to pleasure.
I'm reading this really awesome book right now by Irene Waters. Is that it? The last name?
No.
It starts with W. Maybe Irene.
No, Isla.
Anyway,
Someone Isla.
I'll link it in the show notes, but it's called Sacred Pleasure.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're talking about how bonobos, I think, some very closely related.
The most closely related species to us.
Yeah.
The bonobos.
They engage in sexual practices before they eat food because it helps with chilling everyone out so that there's less aggression during feeding time. And I just thought that was really interesting that they used sex as a mechanism to chill out.
Well, yes, that's what we're supposed to do as well. Yeah, but it got all messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even that I'm a big fan of having sex before you eat. Like people tend to eat and then have sex and you're full.
Yeah.
And you're tired. And, I mean, I know if you've got kids and stuff, it's not a life stage where you necessarily can easily have sex before you eat, but it just makes so much sense. When you're going out on a big date, right, you got to have sex first and then get all dolled up and have a great evening. You're going to enjoy it a lot more because you're already feeling good.
Yeah, and it releases tension and all that head down, top down signaling anxieties because you have to be bottom up.
You do.
And they were talking about how the bonobos, like a woman will go up to another woman and then they'll just like give each other a look and then they start rubbing their clits together. And then they're like, "Oh, okay, all good now. Time to feed the clan," So I don't know. I thought that was such an interesting way that they relieve stress. Yeah. And then they can get on with their survival. Because that's what sex is essentially. It's a survival thing. Because when you're bonded, you're more likely to survive because you've got someone looking out for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And particularly the vulnerable young, which humans are for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's partly why I do so much Argentine tango. Not exactly rubbing clits together, but we're certainly getting up close and personal and getting a lot of the good endorphins and the oxytocins from having such meaningful connected engagements.
Yeah. Which then, again, just redefines what sex and erotica actually is.
Yes, indeed. So that was part one of what comes before consent is paying attention to what you're feeling. Yeah. And then the other one is communicating that with your partner.
Yes. Yeah. Right. I forgot we hadn't even gotten to step 2.
Well, I sort of did step 2 before we did step 1 because I was talking about that earlier.
Okay.
So that's that whole thing about, okay, I'm feeling like something. So I'm going to be vulnerable and share that in an enticing way. Yeah. Hey, doll, just think it. And giving
Which
them...
Which is not manipulation.
No.
No.
It's just offering something. You think of it as an offer. It's an invitation. It's a suggestion, right? And when you're thinking of it in that way, then you're using that kind of language, right? So you make the suggestion. And then without begging or asking permission and without putting it on them, do you want to? Hey, this is what I'm feeling. Pausing. Giving them time to take it on board, process. How do I feel about that?
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes there's a bit of back and forth. The partner might go, "Oh, really? An early night? Well, I'm just going to check out my emails and catch up with a friend or two." Like, "Oh, really? So how long do you think that might take?" "Well, I reckon I probably need about an hour." "Shall we check back in an hour?" I'll probably be waiting in the bedroom if you feel like coming up. Right? So like all that sort of little sexy banter, it can be kind of fun, and that gets you in the mood as well.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. But also be aware, it's really, really important that sometimes your partner might be struggling with this, or they might not frame it quite right, or you're still learning how to do this well. Yeah, so if your partner isn't very good at wording it yet, like be supportive. Like, so darling, would you like to rephrase that as an invitation? Right? But
or like open-ended questions too.
Yes. These are open-ended questions. They don't have a yes or no answer.
Yeah.
Right? That gives the other an opportunity to really go, oh, how do I feel about that? And be expressive.
And it can't just be like how are you feeling today?
Yeah.
If they're struggling, like if they're good with expressing themselves, a question like that is probably fine. But
yeah. Yes. And this also solves that big problem that people have, like, well, how do I say no without feeling like rejection? Yeah. Because what you're doing is you're actually sharing your yes.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, don't feel like that exactly, but this is where I'm at. Right? Partners, you're having a nice, sitting on the couch, having a nice wine and a chat, and one of you's like, I wouldn't mind leaning in for a kiss. And the other might be like, oh, a kiss, hey? Well, I'm actually kind of enjoying this conversation. I could keep this going for a while longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some quite open-ended questions that you would suggest for someone who isn't very communicative?
Yes. So once you've made your suggestion, hey, doll, I wouldn't mind, or I'm feeling like this, or, this is where I'm at. How about you? Where are you at? What do you reckon about that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you have any thoughts or feelings? Or I'm curious to know about you.
Yeah. Because I guess if they can specifically respond to that sharing of self, it's like a smaller thing to agree or like check in with yourself against, rather than that whole like, are you ready to be penetrated in 20 minutes?
Oh, you said that word. Yeah. For those who are new to this podcast, I hate the word penetration because it's an aggressive word.
It is aggressive.
Just say intercourse. Or turn the focus to the vagina and talk about envelopment and invitation and embracing the penis with vagina. So much nicer. Yes.
My penis wants a cuddle from your vagina.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
But that's kind of sweet and it's cute.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Can it be a rough cuddle? Or is it more of just like a tender hold for a second?
See how much fun you can have with this?
And it's like, well, I think we can start with the tender hold, but I'll let you know how my vagina is feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm open to the pound town.
Open to the what?
Pound town.
Pound town.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, that's just an example.
That is a beautiful example, my darling.
Yeah.
I love that. The pound town. Well, yeah, because like when we're talking about this kind of sex, it doesn't have to be all sort of super lovey-dovey kind of stuff. Not
and
at
it's
all.
Also not transactional. So it's not like, I want to go on your vagina. Well, then I want you to do this.
Yeah.
It's different.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So back to our couples. So practice. You can practice in life. Like don't make assumptions. And, you can start practicing with like a hug. Like you don't just go in for a hug.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kind of open your arms and you go, hey, doll, I wouldn't mind a hug. Where are you at?
Yeah.
And just to practice going, yes, I will, or no, I won't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even practice saying no, even if you do want a hug. Just going, doll, not right now, thanks. What a lovely offer.
I want a hug in 10 seconds, actually. I guess you could also do it with food because food is easy.
Yeah. We're usually pretty good at it with food.
I'm feeling like lasagna.
Yeah.
Would you like some lasagna?
That feels a bit heavy for where I'm at right today. It's a pretty hot day. I was thinking a bit of a salad. Yeah. See, you can notice how you co-create in other parts of life.
Ha ha ha.
So practice.
Yeah. Practice with yourself and with your person.
Yeah. And when you get good at it, it's just so fantastic because it takes all the pressure off.
What if you were like doing a one night stand type of deal? How would you, because like, say for example, you're someone who listens to this podcast. I know someone who does this. So say someone who listens to this podcast all the time and then you really, really enjoy lots of casual sex with a lot of different partners.
Yeah.
But you don't want to have like an hour-long discussion about the history of sex and what nonlinear lovemaking is.
You must listen to these podcasts first. There will be an exam at the end.
In your Grindr bio, it's like, we'll only fuck you if you
listen to this podcast.
But how would you go about that?
Yeah. So there's going to be less of the interaction type stuff, but you've got to be paying even more attention, right? And you've got to be good at, so if they're coming on a little bit strong, right? They're leaning in for a kiss, for instance, you're like, we'll just wait a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, or if they're not kissing you, you're kind of like, hey, I'm just going to come on in for a kiss. That's okay with you.
But I think the thing about these apps like Grindr and Tinder for hookups is that you're already consenting by being there in the first place.
Well, yes, exactly.
Or you're consenting.
To some extent, yeah. So then basically what you're doing you're managing the pace a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Or you're managing exactly how, so yeah, it won't be about the kiss so much, but like, you're in the bedroom and so forth. Like if they're like automatically going down, you're kind of like, whoa, hang on, like let's just stay up here a little longer. That's where I'm at. Or, and you can model it as well. So you can kind of be like, thinking I wouldn't mind going down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also because like Grindr has this function. Grindr's like the gay men.
Yeah.
Okay,
cool.
Cool.
Yeah, but that's for the sake of our listeners who might not.
Anyway, there's this function where you like don't show your nudes until you're ready. And then you like, it's a bit, it's not the best because you're kind of like shopping for humans to have sex with. But you do need to have some type of texting initially, and then usually, as far as I understand, is like after a while you'll share your like private folder, and then based on how the genitals of the conversation look, you're like, yes, I will come over. But to make that more aligned with this type of lovemaking, potentially you could start with that like suggestiveness in that texting stage. Like, hey, I love how you look. Very interested in you. Type of thing.
Yeah, I think so. Like, use your words. It just makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
Like this whole just sending out your photos of each other. I'm like, I don't know, it's just lazy people.
Yeah.
I have to say.
It's not very fulfilling. Like, I've never really talked to anyone who engages with this level of casual sex who's like it's exciting and it's fun a lot of the time, but it's not that super connecting thing, which I guess isn't always what you're looking for if you're on these apps, but it doesn't have to be like that, is what I'm trying to say. You can make it more meaningful and humanizing, I guess.
A one night fling, catch up, whatever. Like, you can still bring the love in there. And I'm not talking romantic love in this case, but like, the respect and the compassion. Like, this is a you and me. So you have the connection, like my mind to your mind, not just my genitals to your genitals. That's what's going to make it more meaningful.
And it's also more fun that way because one of the best things about strangers is that there is so much to learn and to connect over because you have no idea what this person is or who this person is.
So bring some of the playfulness in.
Yeah.
Bit of creativity, right? Yeah. Use your words, like actually speak. And some people might find it a bit weird that you're speaking when, you're engaging.
Yeah.
Right? But they click onto it pretty quickly. And if they don't like it, then you're just kind of like, next.
And I guess that's kind of what these apps are. It is kind of just like a sexy game, which results in intercourse. Like, usually.
It reminds me a little bit when I was your age, when I was young, which was way before dating apps. Where the best place to get hookups, there wasn't as much hooking up because basically you're in the same community all the time. So you didn't do people shopping like you do now. So the best place to do it was when you were traveling, right? That's when you'd probably get laid a lot. You'd have sex with a lot of different people. But it was always really cool because, they were from different countries or from different places and you were doing interesting things. You were traveling. And so there was always a lot more sense of, I'm interested in you. And you're interested in me, and we're having some sort of joint experience beyond just the sex.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I was talking to a friend about this the other day who's my age, and I'm like, I reckon young people miss out on a lot of that because it's just like, do I like the look of your genitals or are your tits big enough? Like, it's just empty. So that's what I'm kind of curious about, you know, and look, I mean, there's people my age that do this as well, of course, you know, and I have done it later in life too.
Well, a lot of it is like validation seeking.
Yeah.
Loneliness. But I guess that's also, you need to become aware of like why you're actually there.
Yeah.
And then from that, you can share that with the other person.
Yeah. And look, if you just feel like I haven't had a shag for a while, I just want to go out and pick someone up and have a good bonk. I mean, fine.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's all good.
So fun.
Yeah. Right. But that's why the consent, so much of it, as you said, it comes down to the why. Why am I wanting to do this? Whether it's, you know, a random or whether it's someone you've been married to for 50 years, right? It's still in this very moment. Where am I at? Where are you at? What are we creating here? What's this about?
It's so hot when someone like presents themselves to you like that.
Yeah.
It's wow, you really know who you are and what you want from this.
Yeah.
Rather than everyone just being like, I don't know, where are we going? Yeah.
And I've trained a lot of gentlemen of my acquaintance in this. And so often, you know, they actually thank me later. They're like, oh, wow, like, you know, even if it was a fairly brief encounter with me, they're kind of like, wow, you've really changed how I engage with women, you know, and like things are so much better. And
not to put any pressure on you by like saying you have to do these specific things. It's more just like a foundation.
Yeah.
For how you can enjoy sex more.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have to get on to questions now.
Oh, shivers. Yes, we do.
I think we only have time for one question.
Oh, okay. Yes, sorry. We're doing this at a different time to normal and I have to get off to work. Got to go to the clinic.
Yeah.
But save love lives in the clinic.
It's fine only to have one question because that was very valuable information.
Yes, exactly.
So this question is very on theme and it is, I don't like saying no to my partner. So I just agree to go along with it. How do I say no?
Yeah, sigh. Well, I did touch on this earlier, actually.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, I did, right? So many people don't like to say no to their partner.
Which is kind of beautiful.
Well, it is, yes.
But it's not very healthy.
Right? So for a start, I just want to say up front that it is okay to disappoint your partner.
Yeah, and realistic.
Yes, it's okay. We can't always get everything that we want in life, right? And it's not just about sex. You know, maybe they do want to have lasagna for dinner, but you just think it's too hot and you just want to make a salad. Okay, disappointing not getting lasagna, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, there will be lasagna in the future, right? Or they want to go away and go hiking and you want to go away and lie by a pool, you know, like, you know, it's okay to disappoint your partner.
It's also okay to do things separately.
Well, yeah, it is. Yeah. And we don't get everything we want in life.
No.
You know, like I'd quite like to drive a Porsche, but you know what? I can't afford to. So a bit disappointing. I will probably never be a Porsche driver. Okay. Got lots of other lovely things in life.
Yeah, you got a pretty good car.
My car. Yeah, it's not a bad car. I'm quite happy with my car. So first up, yes, it's okay to disappoint your partner.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it only feels like rejection if it's like you're rejecting them, right? If you're just saying no, okay.
Which is fine if you're like having a freak out moment. Not saying that you can't ever be like, stop, red light, done, like time and a place. But
yes. So, but if you say, so if your partner's wanting to have pleasure with you of an intimate nature, well, I mean, that's a pretty nice thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to, and this is why it's good when you've both identified that the reason why you like having sex is because it's about pleasure and connection.
Yeah.
Connection through pleasure, right? So if they are making the suggestion, you go, oh, that's a really nice thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
I often say to this to people who kind of, oh, God, my partner's always pressuring me they want sex all the time. I'm like, well, imagine that they didn't. Imagine if they never reached out to you, if they appeared to not be interested in you at all. Like, that's pretty awful. That's actually worse in many ways than having a partner who's too eager.
Yeah.
Right? So assume that it's a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're offering you a nice piece of cake. Sweetheart, would you care for this lovely piece of cake?
Yeah.
And you're thinking, actually, that's a lovely piece of cake. Thank you for offering that cake. But actually, I'm not in the mood for cake. Right? You're not rejecting the person. You're just rejecting, you're just saying, no, that's not where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Right? And then you give your yes. What are you feeling like right now? It might be some other kind of intimate activity.
Yeah.
Or it might be something actually like, I'm just not in the mood to connect right now. I'm just going to go off and, do something else for a little while. Maybe later. right? Because then at least your partner knows what your yes is. Your partner knows where you're at. It's not just a no and then there's a void.
Yeah, it's
That's
like
horrible.
What we were talking about last week with it's easier to feel respected when you understand where the person is coming from.
Yes.
So when there is that reasoning behind it, it's less like, oh my God, why?
Yeah, exactly. Right? And you'll also find too that if your partner starts adopting the approach like we're talking about today, like the offering of self, the suggesting, the inviting and waiting for your response, it's going to be so much easier for you to respond in a way that isn't just like a no. Like if someone comes up to you and goes, oi, can we have sex? And you're like, where's that come from? Like, no, I'm not that, yeah, right? Yeah. But if your partner comes up to you and is like, hey, babe, notice you're in a good mood, I'm in a good mood, kids are in a good mood, thinking we go to the bedroom a little earlier perhaps this evening. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe that's not a bad idea. Let me ponder that.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, make it about yourself rather than.
Yeah. And as I often say, let your partner be themselves. Stop trying to preempt where your partner is at and what they're thinking and wanting. It's so much easier. It's so much less stress when you